Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashta Prayashu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be reading from the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 2nd canto, 6th chapter, verses 40 and 41. They're going together. You can pull it up on your devices so that you can chant along and read. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam Vishuddham kevalam jnanam Pratyak samyagavasthitam Pratyak samyagavasthitam Satyam purnamanadyantam Satyam purnamanadyantam Nirgunam Nityam Advayam Rishevidanti Munaya Rishevidanti Munaya Prashantatmendriya Shaya Prashantatmendriya Shaya Yada tad eva sattarkais Yada tad eva sattarkais Tirodhiyeta viplutam Tirodhiyeta viplutam. Please chant. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam Pratyak samyagavasthitam Satyam purnamanadyantam Nirgunam nityam advayam Rishevidanti munaya Prashantatmendriya shayaha Yada tad eva sattarkais Tirodhiyeta viplutam. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam Pratyak samyagavasthitam Satyam purnamanadyantam Nirgunam nityam advayam Rishevidanti munaya Prashantatmendriya shayaha Yada tad eva sattarkais Tirodhiyeta viplutam. Vishuddham kevalam jnanam pratyak samyak avastitam satyam purnam anadyantam nirgunam nityam advayam rishe vidanti munayaha prashantatmendriyashayaha yada tad eva sattarkais tirodhiyeta viplutam vishuddham kevalam jnanam pratyak samyak avastitam satyam purnam anadyantam nirgunam nityam advayam rishe vidanti munayaha prashantatmendriyashaya yada tad eva sattarkais tirodhiyeta viplutam. Very nice. Can you try? Vishuddham kevalam jnanam pratyak samyak avastitam satyam purnam anadyantam nirgunam nityam advayam rishe vidanti munayaha prasantatmendriyashayaha yada tad eva sattarkais tirodhiyeta viplutam. Right, synonyms. Vishuddham, without any material tinge. Kevalam, pure and perfect. Jnanam, knowledge. Pratyak, all pervading. Samyak, in fullness. Avastitam, situated. Satyam, truth. Purnam, absolute. Anadi, without any beginning. Antam, and so also without any end. Nirgunam, devoid of material modes. Nityam, eternal. Advayam, without any rival. Rishe, O Narada, O great sage. Vidanti, they can only understand. Munaya, the great thinkers. Prashanta, pacified. Atma, self. Indriya, senses. Ashaya, sheltered. Yada, while. Tat, that. Eva, certainly. Asat, untenable. Tarkai, arguments. Tiradhiyeta, disappears. Viplutam, distorted. Translation. The personality of Godhead is pure. Being free from all contaminations of material tinges, He is the absolute truth and the embodiment of full and perfect knowledge. He is all-pervading, without beginning or end, and without rival. O Narada, O great sage, the great thinkers can know Him when completely freed from all material hankerings, and when sheltered under undisturbed conditions of the senses. Otherwise, by untenable arguments, all is distorted, and the Lord disappears from our sight. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Here is an estimation of the Lord apart from His transcendental activities in the temporary material creations. Mayavad philosophy tries to designate the Lord as contaminated by a material body when He accepts the forms of incarnation. This sort of interpolation is completely denied herein by the explanation that the Lord's position is pure and unalloyed in all circumstances. According to Mayavad philosophy, the spirit soul, when covered by nescience, is designated as jiva, but when freed from such ignorance or nescience, he merges in the impersonal existence of the absolute truth. But here it is said that the Lord is eternally the symbol of full and perfect knowledge. This is the speciality, perpetual freedom from all material contaminations. This distinguishes the Lord from the individual, common living entities who have the aptitude for being subordinated by nescience and thus becoming materially designated. In the Vedas, it is said that the Lord is Vijñam Anandam, full of bliss and knowledge. The conditioned souls are never to be compared to Him because such individual souls have the tendency to become contaminated. Although after liberation, the living entity can become one with the same quality of existence as the Lord, his very tendency to become uncontaminated, which the Lord never has, makes the individual living entity different from the Lord. In the Vedas it is said, Shuddham apapa vidham. The individual Atma becomes polluted by sin, but the Lord is never contaminated by sins. The Lord is compared to the powerful sun. The sun is never contaminated by anything infectious because it is so powerful. On the contrary, infected things are sterilized by the rays of the sun. Similarly, the Lord is never contaminated by sins. On the contrary, the living entities become sterilized by contact with the Lord. This means that the Lord is also all-pervading like the sun, and as such, the word pratyak is used in this verse. Nothing is excluded from the expansions of the Lord's potency. The Lord is within everything, and He is all-covering also, without being disturbed by the activities of the individual souls. He is therefore infinite, and the living entities are infinitesimal. In the Vedas it is said that only the Lord alone exists, and all other existences depend on Him. He is the generating reservoir for everyone's existential capacity. He is the supreme truth of all other categorical truths. He is the source of everyone's opulence, and therefore no one can equal Him in opulence. Being full of all opulences, namely wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, certainly He is the Supreme Person. And because He is a person, He has many personal qualities. Although He is transcendental to the material modes, we have already discussed the statement, Itam Bhuta Gano Hari, Bhagavatam 1.7.10. His transcendental qualities are so attractive that even the liberated souls, Atmaramas, are also attracted by them. Although possessed of all personal qualities, He is nevertheless omnipotent. Therefore, personally, He has nothing to do, for everything is being carried out by His omnipotent energies. This is confirmed in the Vedic mantras, Parasya Shaktir Vivadhaiva Shruyate Swabhavaki Jnana Bala Kriya Cha. This suggests His specific spiritual form, which can never be experienced by the material senses. He can be seen only when the senses are purified by devotional service. Yame Vaishya Vrinute Tena Labhya. As such, there are basic differences between the Lord and the living entities in so many respects. No one can be compared to the Lord. As the Vedas declared, Ekam evadvitiyam brahma dvaitad vaibhayam bhavati. The Lord has no competitor. He has nothing to fear from any other being, nor can anyone be equal to Him. Although He is the root of all other beings, there are basic differences between Him and other beings. Otherwise, there would have been no necessity for the statement in the previous verse, that no one can know him 100% as he is. Nayam vidanti tatvina. That no one can fully understand him is explained also in this verse. But the qualification for understanding to some degree is mentioned here. Only the prashantas, or unalloyed devotees of the Lord, can know him to a greater extent. The reason is that the devotees have no demands in their lives but to be obedient servants of the Lord. While all others, namely the empiric philosophers, the mystics, and the fruitive workers, all basically have some demand, and as such they cannot be pacified. The fruitive worker wants rewards for his work. The mystic wants some perfection of life, and the empiric philosopher wants to merge in the existence of the Lord. Somehow or other, as long as there is a demand for sense gratification, there's no chance for pacification. On the contrary, by unnecessary dry speculative arguments, the whole matter becomes distorted, and thus the Lord moves still further away from our understanding. The dry speculators, however, because of their following the principles of austerity and penance, can have knowledge of the impersonal features of the Lord to some extent, but there is no chance of their understanding his ultimate form as Govinda, because only the amala atmanas, or the completely sinless persons, can accept pure devotional service to the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:28. Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam dridhavrita. Om ajnanathmirandhasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai Shri Guruve namaha. Shri Chaitanya manobhishtam stapitam yena bhutale swayam rupa kadamahyam dadati svapadantikam vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Bhagavatam class. Those prayers that I just chanted, those are prayers to the different acharyas, or the great personalities in our disciplic succession. And those are prayers so that whatever I speak is in line of disciplic succession and is in seeking blessings and auspiciousness from them. Thank you for the opportunity to give class. It's my first time giving class in a big temple. I've always been in a smaller environment in preaching centers or something like that. But thank you for the opportunity for my own purification. I remember once Brahmatirtha Prabhu told me that whenever you get a chance to speak Bhagavatam class, you should never deny it. Because the only thing that'll come out of it is just purification. And it reminded me of a story of Nityananda Prabhu, the temple president of ISKCON Dallas, and how he came into devotional service, into bhakti. He had met the devotees on a very bad terms in the Fiji Islands, because he's from there. And he didn't like the devotees at all. He lived right next to the temple, and his family is like from this big political position in the Fiji Islands. And the devotees were loud, and they kirtan, and just doing their devotional activities, which was disturbing him. And so then he was actually going to sue the devotees, and he had power to actually kick them out from there. And but he either had that option, and the other option was actually pretty. He himself shares it. He says is that to bomb the temple. And so then he had those ideas, and then but he decided to take it to court. And over there in court later on, he goes and meets Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was over there. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, I'll give you 3 months. If you try out devotional service, like, live in the ashram and just do the whole program properly for 3 months. And he gave him certain books to read, chant so many rounds, attend the full morning program, 3 months, try it out. And then you tell it for yourself what is this all about? And so he decided, what he was thinking was that, yeah, I'll try 3 months, and I know for sure it's going to be all, preposterous and fake. So then I'll have evidence on my end to, say this. So he said, yeah, I'll do 3 months. And he did 3 months. And one of his assignments in those 3 months was, Tamal Krishna Maharaj told the temple president over there that you have to make him give Bhagavatam class on certain days. And so, it's because what happened was Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted him to sit and actually study and the Bhagavatam on his own, and actually, come to terms and actually explain it to others. So he was explaining that how Bhagavatam actually helped him in that regard. And then 3 months later, he was a devotee, an amazing devotee of Tamal Krishna, a disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Yeah, similarly, I want to follow in that fashion. This section of the Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, is called the Purusha Sukta Prayers Confirmed. And what first came to my mind when I was doing this was when I spent some time in the Govardhan Eco-Village, Brahmachari Ashram. I joined the Bhaktivedanta Vidyapith course that they have over there, and I stayed there for 2.5 months, and this section of the second canto was going on at that time, and I still remember they had done this in-depth study. I'm sure they're wonderful scholars over here that have already done this study, but for me it was a first time seeing this in-depth study of specifically this chapter. That was very interesting, was that they compared the verses of this chapter with the Purusha Sukta prayers itself, and they were studying it and comparing it, and in many sections the Sanskrit is verbatim to the Purusha Sukta prayers, and the only difference is that in this chapter it actually emphasizes Krishna as being that person who's having all these qualities. The Purusha Sukta prayers is just glorifying some personality out there, some great being, and the Shaivites say that it is Lord Shiva, or different schools of thought say their perspectives, but the Bhagavatam very clearly explains that this is actually Krishna, and Brahma is being very emphatic in that manner, because Narada Muni comes and seeks for he approaches him as if Lord Brahma is the Supreme Lord. And Brahma didn't want to take that. He said, no, I want to correct you and tell you who's really the Supreme Lord. And so then this whole chapter is unfolding. And then as the chapter goes, he's basically glorifying the different qualities of the Lord, glorifying, as we were seeing in the previous verses and coming to this verse, all these wonderful qualities that the Lord has. And what's interesting, what I find is that Srila Prabhupada, in many sections of the Bhagavatam, there's a common theme that he emphasizes, almost like in every other purport that the theme comes about. There's this section in the third canto, in the discussion between Maitreya and Vidura, where Prabhupada always brings up, he first mentions the story of Dr. Frog. So Dr. Frog is this one frog that is in a small well, and then his other frog friend comes by and tells him that, hey, Dr. Frog, you know, I just went to the ocean, and it's such a big body of water. And then Dr. Frog was like, oh, really? How big is it? You know, he starts expanding his, you know how frogs expand their throat, right? So he started expanding his throat. And he said, is it this big? And then he was like, no, it's not that big. It's so big. It's the ocean, you know? And he's like, oh, really? Is it this big? He expands and expands, and then it keeps happening until the point where the frog expands to the point and then explodes. And so that goes to show that the small mind of Dr. Frog was nothing compared to, he couldn't fathom what the ocean was like. He was just in a small well. So in that section, Prabhupada is, you know, always comparing all these different philosophers to the frog. So every purport, it's like the froggish philosophers, the froggish PhDs, the froggish Mayavadis, you know, it's like Prabhupada is always like using that adjective to explain that. And what I was noticing in this section is that Prabhupada is, he's going at Mayavad philosophy a lot in this whole section. And I've noticed that in general also in the prayers, whenever there are prayers of glorification to the Lord, to Krishna, because mostly the prayers are all glorifying Krishna's qualities, you know, all these different aspects of the Lord that, what we say, he's just glorifying that. And then Prabhupada really goes to explain, I've noticed in those sections he always smashes Mayavad philosophy. Because what is Mayavad philosophy, right? That's the question. Mayavad, so the word Mayavad is like, vada means to talk about, conversation, and Maya is illusion. So their philosophy, as Prabhupada explains in this, is that in this purport, he says, Mayavad philosophy tries to designate the Lord as contaminated by a material body when he accepts forms of incarnation. So basically they're saying that Krishna, the personality of Krishna and his qualities are all just material and mundane. And that's what Mayavad philosophy and their doctrine also, as explained here, according to Mayavad philosophy, the spirit soul, when covered by nescience, is designated as jiva. But when freed from such ignorance or nescience, he merges in the impersonal existence of the absolute truth. So their thought is that, according to Mayavad philosophy, when the jiva, the pure jiva, is covered, or when the pure absolute truth is covered, he takes the form of a jiva, and then when he's freed from such ignorance, he goes back and merges into this, you know, energy of what's out there, the universe, you know, as they say. But we see like the fallacy in this argument, you know. If there's the absolute truth, you know, the absolute truth is such a powerful being, how can that, you know, thing be covered how can that absolute truth be covered by material conception, by nescience? How can that be covered by nescience and ignorance? And also it defeats their own philosophy when they say that yeah, everything is Brahman and everything is all energy, but then at that point they say that no, but there's nescience as well, there's ignorance. So then at that point they're self-defeating themselves by saying that there's two energies. They're saying that first there's only Brahman, everything is Brahman, and then, but there's this one energy. At that point they're defeating themselves because they're saying that there are two energies at that point. But yeah, so then this Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Avajananti ma muda manushim tanumashrutam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. He says, fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. And Krishna is saying that this philosophy is foolish, to say that his qualities are all mundane and he's just like an average, ordinary person. Prabhupada says that also in that purport of that verse that he says, from the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet, there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he's the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Paramas Krishna. He's the Supreme Lord. So his qualities and attributes and, his pastimes, his form, you be singing every morning, Shri Radhika Madhavayorapara Madhurya Leela Guna Rupa Nam Nam. So his name, form, qualities, pastimes, these are all transcendental. When it says he does not have any gunas, nirguna, even in this verse, when it says nirguna, in the synonyms, Prabhupada translates that as devoid of material modes. Not saying that he has no qualities. He says he does not have material qualities. But his nature itself is transcendental. And understanding that transcendental nature of Krishna is what takes us back to Godhead. That his qualities, his pastimes, his different attributes are all transcendental in nature. They're all his internal potency. He's never affected by anything else. He's always free, as explained, swarat, the word, it's called in Sanskrit. So there's that verse, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. So one who knows the pastimes and qualities of Krishna to be transcendental, that person is eligible to go back to Godhead and know him in truth. So this is an explanation of how Krishna has this transcendental nature. He is transcendental in nature, and the analogy of the sun is given in this regard. How the sun is never affected by, anything material, right, from this earth. It's only affected, it's not affected by anything. In fact, it purifies, it sterilizes, as Prabhupada says. It sterilizes different things. There's that explanation that even purifies urine. The sun has such a potency that if there's urine in a puddle, it can purify that and bring out pure water from that, right? That's the power of the sun. Just by being in contact with the sun, a contaminated thing like urine can be purified. So then being in contact with Krishna and his qualities and his name, his holy name, being in contact with that and his service, devotional service and different things, we get purified. Our urine-like situations, we get purified to come to our pure state. And then another explanation is that how we are different from the Lord, but at the same time same with the Lord, right? So Prabhupada is making a point in this purport of how the living entity, the jiva soul, can never be on the same level of the Lord quantitatively, right? But qualitatively, we're in same nature as the Lord. Qualitatively, we are also eternal, we're full of knowledge, and we are pleasure-seeking entities, right? But not on the same quantity as the Lord. Also over here, it said how the different opulences of the Lord. What's the name of Krishna that he means full of opulences? Bhagavan, yes? Bhaga means opulences and Van means full of. I always think of van full of opulences to remind myself. But Bhagavan, he's full of opulences. So we also have a little bit of those. So what are the, it's over here explained, what are the 6 opulences of the Lord? Fame. Beauty. Wealth. Renunciation. Knowledge and renunciation. We did. So it's fame, beauty, strength. Strength, yes. Strength, yes. Strength. So those are the 6 opulences. So we notice that we all have, to some degree, some of those opulences. Some of us are quite knowledgeable, and that's also a very attractive principle. Different things are that if people are knowledgeable, that person is attractive to some degree. Some person maybe not knowledgeable at all, just so dumb, and but he may be rich, He's so rich that, wow, he's attractive, because he's rich, Yeah. But so different degrees. Some may have just so much beauty and different permutation and combination, but it's all small. This is where it says we're all anu, and Krishna is vibhu. Vibhu means full, big. But we're all anu. We're all small. So everything, all the riches that we have, like if we have $10 in our pocket right now, Krishna actually owns that $10. So he has all the $10 in our pocket, plus he has more. So he's supremely rich. And all the beauty that we have, I like that one sentence in this, that our capacity of existence is there because we exist on the basis of the Lord, right? Because all the energies of the Lord is existing based on Krishna. So anything that we have, anything that we, all our, empowerments or, anything we can do is based on Krishna, because Krishna himself has that in him. That's why. So that goes to show that how we are small, but in quality we have some of these qualities, but very small in quantity from the Lord. So that's this philosophy of Lord Chaitanya that he came to give. That philosophy it's called Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneous oneness with the Lord. It's not that we're saying that, I still remember this. I read this section in I found a Bible, just not a Bible, but like a Christian book in my university, in University of Florida. And I checked it, and I was just going through the section, and there was this one, one of the in the table of contents, one was, "Who am I?" And I was like, wow, okay, they're going to address this question. Like, I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, I turned to the page, I went there, I checked, who am I? I read the first paragraph, first sentence. You are a sinner. And you need to understand your position, And I was like, oh, okay, but Then I realized that, whereas, how do we understand this? Who are we? Who am I? We're not this bodies. We're not this material things that we are, but we are the pure spirit soul, We are the eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. That's the same quality as Krishna, who's on that transcendental platform. We're also transcendental beings, but since we're the marginal energy of the Lord, so as it was said, he has many energies. One of his energies is the tatashta shakti, marginal energy. So that energy can be easily influenced, going from one place to the other. So we're influenced by this energy, this Mahamaya energy of the Lord, that since we have that thought that I want to enjoy separately from Krishna, so Krishna creates this environment, for us to be in that position. But, Maya. Yes, it's Mahamaya. But then also there's the Yoga Maya energy, the internal potency of Krishna, where we can either shift into this temporary material energy, or we can shift into that spiritual energy, Yoga Maya, that we can connect with Krishna and be under his shelter. So as Tatastha Shakti, we can always choose. We're always, we can jump from one place to another. And so that's our daily practice of bhakti, our daily sadhana as sadhakas. We're trying to show up to Krishna every day. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj says that every morning we should rejoin the Hare Krishna movement. He says every morning we should rejoin the Hare Krishna movement. And take our beads, attend Mangal Arti. It's definitely it's a struggle that we do. But where is there not struggle in this material world? Out in the material world itself, it's such a struggle to just live life. But instead, we need to change our consciousness. So changing that consciousness takes that endeavor on our part, to just show up to Krishna, to really make that choice within your mind. I'm going to do my japa, I'm going to do my services, I'm going to, connect to Krishna. And that comes through sadhu sangha, through being in association of the devotees. Because being in an association of devotees is what, they're on that platform, and then there's this momentum going towards spirituality. So it's easier to do it in association of devotees, and that's the understanding. Another point of understanding this Mayavad philosophy, as explained in this purport and section, is that how for many people who want to get into spirituality, they say, okay, they're seekers, they're looking for, what's more to life than these mundane things. In one sense, they're frustrated with all these material things and all these different, just the material world is just birth, old age, disease, and death. They're just fried from this world. So they're seekers. They want to know what's more to life. And for many times in the spiritual shopping mall, the biggest thing out there is Mayavad philosophy and impersonalism. And I mean, Prabhupada, in fact, acknowledges that thought by saying that, they're fried with material world, so they just want to say nothing in variety, nothing in everything. All of that is just illusion, and only just like the oneness with everything and everything, the peace, just being calm and just being away from all these things is spirituality. That's their conception. And to their credit, in one sense, they're fried with material world. But that's a very low level of understanding the amazingness of spirituality that there is. We in the beginning of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the start of the Adi Leela, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Prabhupada also in this purport, it's going to such explanations of the different spiritual energies of the Lord. Explains, how he has these expansions, and then within those expansions, these expansions can do these things. That and they have different functions, and they're all spiritual in nature, and all these intricacies of spirituality, the variegatedness. So then the question arises: is that if there is variegatedness in this material world, why can there not be variegatedness in the spiritual realm, right? Why can't there be variegatedness in there? Yeah, there's some side effects with variegatedness in this material world, but on the spiritual realm, platform, that variegatedness has a different effect on your consciousness and your being. Why deride? It's just very closed-minded, and it's also like lazy spirituality to say that, oh no, nothing variegated is good. Whereas we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita how there's so much variety and so much, and just in the Bhagavatam, there's so much variety in spirituality. But the nature of it, the experience of it is different for the jiva. So this philosophy itself is also very hurting to the devotees because it diminishes that loving affection that we have with Krishna. There's that pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita of after the Mahaprakash Leela. In the end of it, I think it was Mukunda, so in that Mahaprakash Leela, Lord Chaitanya, he was just giving full mercy to everybody, and then I think it was Mukunda. So for Mukunda, he said, I don't want to even see him anymore, because he associates with Mayavadis, people who are, deriding the form of the Lord, saying that that's illusion. So Lord Chaitanya says that sometimes he's coming, and sometimes he associates with the devotees. So Lord Chaitanya was saying that he sometimes comes and hugs me, and then later on he comes and beats my body up, by associating with those Mayavad philosophers. So as devotees, it's very hurtful to be in association of such persons, and it can actually destroy our very faith in bhakti just by being in their association, unless you're very powerful in your bhakti, and if you're doing it in a preaching purpose. But it's very dangerous to be in their association. Even Lord Chaitanya, when he was in Jagannath Puri, since he was such a wonderful sannyasi, great personality, all these different poets and philosophers wanted to come and present their work. And so, if Lord Chaitanya approves, it's, their literature or their work is going to be very powerful, and, it's approved by Lord Chaitanya. So what he's told was that he assigned Swarup Damodar Goswami, one of his secretaries, that whatever literature and whatever comes in, you basically be the filter before it reaches the Lord. Because, it hurts a devotee's heart, a soft heart of a devotee, this Mayavad philosophy. It's very dry, saying that, there's no love, it's all an illusion, emotions are all an illusion, and all these different things. And so it hurts the heart of a devotee who has such love and compassion for Krishna. And now, why does a devotee have love and compassion for Krishna? Because Krishna himself says that to actually understand the absolute truth, you need to do that through devotional service, through love. Yeah, you can very technically understand a person by I'm just going to analyze you from afar and, see you. But actually to go and have a relationship with that person, see what his likes and dislikes and, those different things, then you get to know that person on a deeper level. So similarly, the absolute truth, we understand by doing devotional service. Devotional service is all about that. There's that verse, again in the 18th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya mam abhijananti yavanyas-chasmi tattvata tato mam tattvato jnata vishate tad anantaram. One can understand me as I am, says Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So just by knowing the person, learning more of Krishna, you in the sense, you're so much more absorbed in him. You learn more about the absolute truth in bhakti. I really appreciate that point that Maharaj brought up in his class, Chandrasekhar Maharaj brought up in his class of how there is, in devotional service, how the Christians, they come just Sunday to Sunday, just like a few hours spending with God to do some sermon and service over there. But as devotees, since we know so much of the Lord, like the Lord is having this form, he's a three-bedded form, he has his entourage, he has so many things. So just because there's so much variegatedness, we're able to do so much for the Lord. So that's why a devotee can never be bored, can never be, just unengaged, because there's so much to do in spirituality. He wants to keep doing for the Lord, because there's so much to know about Krishna, learn about Krishna, and once you know about Krishna, you want to do so much for Krishna, that's the quality of a devotee. And so how can we understand Krishna? Is by devotional service. So just to summarize, this verse is talking about the different qualities of the Lord, specifically full and perfect in knowledge. He's pure, without beginning or end. And how can one actually understand this? Is through, and we analyzed Mayavad philosophy and how that just is very weak in its own substance. Also how why bhakti and the practice and the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya really allows a person to actually understand the absolute truth on a better level. And that's through devotional service. So, if anyone has any comments or questions or jokes. Yes, bro.
What I've noticed about spirituality, especially with the Christian brothers, it said, it's about sacrifice. It's not eating the meat. It's not eating of anything that has animal products. It's not gambling, right? I think every religion could agree that's the road to the dark side, right? Anyways, no gambling, right? No intoxication, no lust or sex, and no tea or coffee. And I feel like, on a transcendental level, as far as Krishna, is that, that transcendental sacrifice is the beginning of spirituality, right? I just want to make a comment on that, if for any viewers don't mind, they're like, what is true spirituality if they're so bored of the mundane, everyday thing.
Yeah.
And I believe it's because we tend to self-indulge ourselves with all the goodness of Lord Krishna.
Yeah.
And we don't have any control. And I feel that, and I know that, spirituality is about having control, right? Of the feelings and emotions that you were talking about. And also, for me, the energy of Lord Krishna is I said the Aya, right? The A-Y-A-H.
Maya.
We were talking about it yesterday, right? Maya is the Godhead personality. And that to me is Lord Krishna. It's the Godhead personality, that energy, right? To classify it in the words of scriptures, or, because when we say energy, like you said, there's so many energies, there's so many varieties. But I just want to make the comment on that, as I'm reading the Gita, Bhagavad Gita, is that, that energy of Lord Krishna is basically the Maya.
So there's the energy and there's the energetic. There's a person of energy who's Krishna, and he has different energies. And one of his energies is his yoga maya and his maya. But I appreciate that point of making sacrifice as well in the beginning. It's a nice point, yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yes. So, any other? Yeah.
I like the points you were making about Mayavad philosophy, that it's self-defeating, that like if there's just Brahman, then, and there's nothing differentiated in Brahman, and it's like a singular thing, then how does there become a second thing, Maya? If Brahman is all truth, how does Maya make it become false or something? Yeah. And it also, it's like the feeding of like any kind of process of purification. I mean, Krishna even says in himself in the Gita that like the impersonal method is very difficult for the embodied soul to like actually make progress in. And if you're told that there's no variegatedness, you just have to focus on negate. Hardly anyone will want to do that. Everyone's looking for some sort of taste. And so there's bhakti yoga, whereas the actual method of purification is very simple. It's like most of the things that you're doing, you just have to transcendentalize. You just have to engage in Krishna's service. You know, you're eating, you have to eat. So instead of just saying, okay, like I remember reading this one Mayavad book on brahmacharya, and it's saying, don't even put salt in your food. Just have like boiled vegetables. That's it. And like you can do that for a little bit, but it makes things very dry and difficult. Whereas in devotional service, you can have full prasadam, 3 times a day, or if you're gluttonous, you maybe have more. But anyway, rascals.
Yeah.
So Mayavadi makes it very hard to actually most people actually turn away from a purificatory process, and they'll miss out on the actual spiritual life. Whereas, on the other hand, if you take this innate desire everyone has for pleasure, everyone's looking for pleasure, then it'll actually lead, Krishna conscious makes it very easy.
Yes. Thank you. Something more?
So it's interesting that the last line here is about arguments distorting the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord can be distorted in so many different ways. That's kind of the thing that's amazing. That atheist distorted by saying he doesn't exist. The Mayavadi is distorted by saying he has no form. Many religionists distort him by also saying that he doesn't have a form. Or if he has a form, it's the form of an old man. And the Sahaji is distorted by saying that we can all be exactly like him. The scientist distorted by thinking that he's the same as the universe or something like that. So there's so many different ways to distort the Supreme Lord. And it's interesting, this one phrase that Prabhupada quotes from Sanskrit, Sudam Apapa Vidham. He doesn't say where it's from, but it's actually from the Ishopanishad, the 8th verse of the Ishopanishad. And there it talks about someone who understands that all living entities come from the Supreme Lord. That's verse 7. And then in verse 8, it says, Saparegash Chukram Agambhyaktam Avrinam Ashnav Viram Shudam Apapa Vidam. That's the 3 words of Prabhupada quotes, Shudam Apapa Vidam. Kavir Manishi Paribhu Svayambur Yatatatyato Vritan Vyadadachash Tibhavya Samabhyan. Such a person must actually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without vain, pure and uncontaminated. The self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So, Shudham means, of course, pure. Apapa. Papa means sin, so apapa means without sin. Vidham. Prabhupada translates apapa vidham as prophylactic. So the Supreme Lord is uncontaminated. And we are too in our nature. However, right now, because we misidentify our nature with matter, we identify with the contaminations of our own particular mind. So that's why we are in the material world. But as soon as we make an effort to rectify that, then we can leave the material world.
Thanks for sharing, Marge. Yeah, Ananta-Kirtan Prabhu.
Yeah, it's just, you made a lot of amazing points. I really appreciated that. There's a couple of things I was thinking. First of all, Mayavad philosophy is actually so depressing. Depressing world view. And I remember Bhadri Narayan Maharaj in San Diego, he was saying one time there was like a group, some pseudo-spiritual group that came to visit the temple, and they came and, they sat down and they were meditating, and, the altar's open, the deity is right there, and in front of the altar in San Diego, there's a little water fountain type of thing, and so they're all like meditating quietly, and then afterwards, Bhadri Narayan Swami goes up and talks to them, greets them, and is friendly, and like the leader of the group said, I think the best thing in your temple is the fountain. The sound the fountain makes. He completely ignored the form of Krishna, and they were meditating on the water of the fountain.
Oh, Krishna.
And this point that you were talking about in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Kunda was associated with Maya bodies, many times we hear that even hearing from the Maya bodies will destroy one's spiritual life. Will cause havoc. And, we shouldn't take that lightly, even if it seems like, maybe we read somewhere in a book or we heard a My Body talk somewhere, and we could easily think, well, I wasn't contaminated. But we don't know, it's like poison. It's like a cancer that we can't perceive. And I've had this experience how association is actually very subtle. Because we have this deep-rooted conditioning of impersonalism in ourselves. We don't even know it's there really until it comes out through purification. So one time I remember I met like some person who was following like the Ritvik philosophy, and he was actually very nice. He was a nice person, and he didn't really talk much about it either. It wasn't like he was propagating it. But he visited a temple one time, and I happened to be at the temple, and I was just reading, and he came in the room, and we had some exchanges, and then he told me that, he follows this philosophy, and, I was trying to be like, okay, that's cool, whatever. And then just like throughout the time he was there, I would periodically see him, and we never even talked about that philosophy, but I saw that it had a subtle effect on my consciousness, just being around a person who had a deviant philosophy. And that was my realization, is because the deep-rooted conditioning of impersonalism is still within my heart. And that philosophy is also somewhat impersonal. You're not surrendering to, you're not following the bona fide personal process. So that's something I'd like to share.
That's nice. Jai.
And also one thing, you were talking about how Mayavad philosophy is self-defeating, because they say that there's only one, but then where does nescience come from? But they can easily say, well, nescience is also part of that one, and that the absolute truth descends for Leela, to have pastimes. The absolute truth is just having fun by being having personality. So how would you respond to that?
It's interesting. How do we respond to that word?
Well, I would say, first of all, no Mayavadi would say that. Secondly, though, if someone said something like that, then essentially they're not a Mayavadi. They're recognizing that to have pastimes, you have to have a personality. The thing with Mayavadi philosophy is it throws everything in the garbage can. The only thing more depressing than Mayavadi philosophy is Buddhist philosophy. which is even more rejecting. It doesn't even accept the Brahman. So, all these philosophies assume abstractions at the very core of everything. That there is this thing called Brahman, which is an abstraction, and that as a result of being an abstraction, there's some truth, and then there's something we call falseness or illusion. But if we can say illusion comes from the truth, then we can say other things come from the truth as well. Why do we stop with just illusion? Why is that the only thing that can come from the truth? If we say that illusion can somehow obfuscate the truth, then illusion is greater than the truth. And if we say it can't, then why does it happen anyway? And the thing that I think that makes Mayavad philosophy the most untenable is that if being one absolutely with everything, with Brahman, is the highest possible achievement, then why did we leave it behind? What was the motivation to leave it behind? And if it isn't, why do we want to go back to it? So, in either case, you have to agree that either it isn't the highest thing, and therefore, we don't want to go back to it, or it is the highest thing, and then therefore we have to scramble, as he was saying, and come up with some idea of Leela. But the minute we talk about Leela, then we're talking about personalities and relationships, which don't fit into Mayavad philosophy anywhere. It's all Maya as far as if you're going to have a Leela, that's Maya. And the other interesting thing is that if we do take that view that we come here, and some people say that the material world is created for us to learn or to experience, but when you look at the world the way it actually is, with war and poverty and disease and all kinds of atrocities being committed by humans, you think, this is a stupid game. If we came up with this game as a result of trying to learn something, we're way off the mark. There's no way to justify it. It becomes the craziest, perverse sort of game you could possibly imagine. It's only when you see everything in the proper perspective as there's a supreme, we can interact with him, but we don't have to. If we decide we want to rebel, we can. As a result of rebelling, there has to be a place for us to go do that. And because we're rebelling, we are to some extent causing our own problems, to some extent causing problems to others. And because we cause problems to others, then that causes karma and it comes back on us. Then the whole thing starts to make sense, why there is problems in the world, why we are in illusion, the fact that the Supreme is, of course, one, but as it says here, he's that impersonal form of the Lord is almost impossible to relate to, because we are persons, and that's impersonal, so it's hard for us to relate to, although it does exist, but it's not the form that we focus on, so we focus on the personal form, because we can have a relationship. And we know about relationships, we're having them now, they're just murky relationships because of our anarthas, that's all. Those are a few things I might say.
No.
I've never heard any kind of a Mayavadi-oriented person make any proposal like that. Though, anyone can say anything, but it shows at least they're on the right path. They're starting to recognize that there could be such a thing as pastimes.
Yeah. Since it's 9:15, we can continue the conversation over breakfast. But thank you for your association. Grantaraj Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai.